In the heart of Florida, a heinous crime against friendship shatters a community. A tale as chilling as it is heart-wrenching, this story unfolds in the quaint city of DeBary. Known for its tranquility and close-knit community, DeBary was the backdrop of a friendship that spanned a lifetime, a bond between two men, Roberto Oval and Julio Rivera. Their camaraderie traced back to their childhood days, two innocent souls sharing dreams and laughter, oblivious of the sinister twist their relationship would take in the future. As the years rolled by, their bond deepened, their lives intricately intertwined, until one fateful day when a dark cloud cast a shadow over their lifelong alliance. In a shocking turn of events, Roberto Oval, a beloved figure in the community, was found lifeless in a storage unit, his life cruelly snuffed out. But what sent tremors of disbelief through DeBary was the identity of his assailant. The perpetrator of this heinous act was none other than his childhood friend, Julio Rivera. A trust, nurtured over decades, was brutally betrayed in a single fatal moment. The crime scene painted a grim picture. Roberto, unsuspecting, was shot in the back of the head, a chilling testament to the cold-blooded nature of the crime. The horrifying act was not a result of a heated argument or a violent confrontation, but a calculated move by Rivera, who felt disrespected by his childhood friend. This was not just a crime against one man, but a betrayal of trust, a violation of a sacred bond of friendship. It was a blow to the community of DeBary, leaving them to grapple with the harsh reality that the perpetrator was one of their own, a man they had known and trusted. A childhood bond shattered forever by a single deadly act. This tragic incident serves as a stark reminder of the depths to which human nature can plunge, pushing the boundaries of trust and friendship to an unimaginable extreme. A single witness, the girlfriend of Roberto, stands in the face of terror. Imagine the horror of witnessing the unthinkable, the murder of your loved one right before your eyes. Picture the scene, a nondescript storage unit in DeBary, Florida, a place of forgotten belongings, now the backdrop of a chilling crime. Roberto Oval's girlfriend, a woman whose name is lost in the shadows of this terrifying event, finds herself in the midst of a nightmare. The gun fires, a deafening sound in the confined space, and Roberto, her partner, her friend, falls. The man pulling the trigger is none other than Julio Rivera, once Roberto's childhood friend, now his executioner. The very air must have tasted of fear as Rivera turns his attention to her, a threat implicit in his gaze. He follows her to her vehicle, his presence an inescapable shadow. Every step she takes, every breath she draws is under the watchful eye of the murderer. But then, a promise of protection. Rivera, the very man who had just taken a life, offers to safeguard her and her children. A wolf in sheep's clothing, his words drip with a false sense of security, a cruel irony that must have twisted her stomach into knots. What courage it must have taken for her to navigate this treacherous situation. The terror of the moment, the fear for her children's safety, all whilst in the company of a cold-blooded killer. Yet she perseveres, her strength a beacon in the darkness of her ordeal. Her survival instincts kick in, her mind races, formulating a plan. She knows she must alert the authorities, she must ensure the safety of her children. She becomes not just a witness, but a key player in the pursuit of justice for Roberto. In the midst of chaos, a brave woman stands against the face of evil. In a storage unit hidden from the world, a murderer awaits his fate. Imagine, if you can, a simple storage unit in DeBary, Florida, an unassuming place filled with odds and ends where a man named Julio Rivera had made his hideout, a place where he thought he could escape the clutches of justice. But the walls of this storage unit held a secret, a chilling tale of murder. Rivera, a man with a past steeped in crime, had come to Florida from New York. Back in the Big Apple, he was no stranger to the law enforcement. He was a convicted felon, previously found guilty of another murder. This was a man who had already tasted the bitter pill of imprisonment, yet he chose to walk the same dark path again. The storage unit was his sanctuary, a place where he thought he could evade the long arm of the law. But the echoes of his past actions were not so easily silenced. Rivera was wanted for parole violations connected to his previous murder conviction. The law enforcement was on his trail and his time in the Sunshine State was limited. But Rivera's plan to remain hidden was thwarted by the very crime he committed in his hideout. The murder of his childhood friend, Roberto Oval, set in motion a chain of events that led the authorities right to his doorstep. The storage unit, once his safe haven, had turned into his prison. The discovery of Rivera at the storage unit was the beginning of the end for him. A past filled with violence and crime had finally caught up with him. His attempts to avoid arrest were in vain. The law had found him, and he was cornered with no place to run. A criminal's past unfolding in the present, leading to his downfall. Behind bars, the truth slips from the lips of the guilty. This is where we find Julio Rivera, a man cornered by his own actions. In the cold, sterile environment of a jailhouse, he makes a phone call. Unbeknownst to him, this call is being recorded, every word he utters adding another nail to his coffin. As Rivera speaks, his voice echoes through the phone line, a chilling testament of guilt. He admits to the murder of his childhood friend, Roberto Oval. His confession is raw, unfiltered, a stark contrast to the calculated deceit that followed in the aftermath of the crime. Each word he speaks is a testament to the heinous act he committed, each phrase a piece of the puzzle that completes a horrifying picture. The confession, you see, is not just an admission of guilt. It is a narrative, a story that paints a vivid, grisly scene. It is the final piece of evidence that seals Rivera's fate. His words, his own account of the murder, become the prosecution's most compelling evidence. They hang heavy in the courtroom, a grim echo of a life snuffed out too soon. This confession, this admittance of guilt, is not just a key piece of evidence in Rivera's conviction. It's the cornerstone, the final damning proof needed to solidify his guilt. His voice, captured on tape, admitting to the unforgivable act, becomes the embodiment of his crime. It is the voice of a man who has crossed the point of no return. As the call ends, so does Rivera's facade of innocence. His confession is a chilling testament to his guilt, a stark reminder of the cold-blooded act he committed. It serves as a grim conclusion to a twisted tale of betrayal, a tale that began in a storage unit and ended in a jail cell. A confession, as chilling as the crime itself, ends a game of cat and mouse. The truth, once elusive, now stands bare, a gruesome testament to a life taken and a friendship shattered. The confession, once a whisper in the dark, now echoes loudly, a chilling reminder of a crime that will forever haunt the memory of a small Florida town. In the courtroom, justice hangs in the balance for a life taken too soon. The story we've been following reaches a critical point: the conviction of Julio Rivera. A jury, having weighed the evidence and testimonies, finds Rivera guilty of first-degree murder and possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. The charges stem from a tragic event that occurred in 2019. Roberto Oval, a childhood friend of Rivera, was brutally shot in the back of the head in a storage unit in DeBary, Florida. The motive? A perceived disrespect that Rivera felt from his lifelong friend. The prosecution presented a compelling case. Central to their argument was a harrowing eyewitness account from Oval's girlfriend who witnessed the shocking event. Her testimony, combined with Rivera's own admission to the crime in a recorded jailhouse phone call, left little room for doubt. The jury deliberated, and the verdict was unanimous: guilty on all counts. Now, as we look ahead, the sentencing phase is scheduled to begin on January 16th. It's a momentous day, as the stakes couldn't be higher for Rivera. He could face the ultimate punishment under the law, the death penalty. The decision lies in the hands of the judge, who will carefully consider the gravity of the crime, the impact on the victim's family, and the defendant's past criminal conduct. As we wait for that day, a sense of anticipation fills the air. The community, still reeling from the shock of the crime, looks to the court for resolution. They seek justice for Roberto Oval, a life cut short in a senseless act of violence. As the gavel falls, a community breathes a sigh of relief, waiting for justice to be served.